Hello, my friends. Well, I know there's a couple of you here, and I know that it was a kind of a short notice on this. I didn't intend on making a video tonight, but I'm feeling talkative. Sometimes I feel talkative. I don't want to talk somebody else's ear off, so I talk to YouTube. And earlier I fell asleep for a while. Sorry, I just took a bong hit. It's not COVID, I swear. I, I've been taking, let's just, to be honest, like say less kratom, for example, lately. And when you take less kratom, of course, your body adapts to it. Might make you more sleepy. I was trying to figure out why I was tired out of the blue the last couple days. I'm not sure what it was, but I embrace it when it comes. Those moments where I feel like I'm just slipping into kind of a nap state, and it's what they would call, I guess it's, I don't have any notes here, but there's a couple of different, there's hypnagogic and hypnopompic. Hypnagogic is when you're first falling asleep and you start to have these half waking dreams. And some of these dreams that we have can just be so strange and dark, and they're worth talking about. You know, I'd mentioned before that I earlier this year had several apocalypse related dreams. One was about forest fires, and another one was about um, like an invasion from space. Another one was it was just a whole bunch of random, like big things that happened, tidal waves, things like that. And I started really considering how the mind processes darkness. How Let me first back up for a minute and define what I mean by darkness. Um, a lot of people, especially in the, let's say, the psychonaut or psychedelic world, have discussed a lot about embracing the darkness when it comes, which means you might find some things about yourself that you were not aware of, some things you didn't want to know. You might start discovering some things about yourself that embarrass you or frustrate you, or maybe realize you're not the person you thought you were, or perhaps you are, but psychedelics can bring out some awarenesses of ourselves that we sometimes can't see otherwise. But it's not just with psychedelics. This can be many different mystical states, religious states, reading certain books and texts, being in a certain state of mind where we start realizing that we're a little darker than we thought. So darkness comes in this sense of realizing that you're going to die, for example. That's the brutal root, you know, the mortality factor. That would be saying, well, here we are, we live for a while, then we pass on. It's not really a big deal, but we make it a big deal, you know. We have all these celebrations of life and rituals of death, but we still have a hard time even embracing it. I mean, think about all the people out there who are just, for lack of a better term, dying to look young. You know, I mean, Botox and dyeing our hair and all these things. And I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with that. People want to look younger, they want to feel younger. But this is the main point of darkness here, the realization that there's the living and then there's the non living. And when something is dead, it's dead. Now, I'm not saying there's no heaven. I'm not saying there is either. I'm saying that is for the individual to determine. I'm not here to tell you what happens before or after your life. But what we know is in this life, we're going to face a lot of adversity. We're going to face a lot of criticism, a lot of hatred, a lot of frustration, even when we're not asking for it, when we haven't done anything wrong. And because of this, we'll have some feelings within us, feelings of perhaps resentment, feelings of frustration towards other people. It's important that we're aware of this and that we kind of try to foster this understanding that people are just people, that we're just doing the best we can, that even some of the people who seem like the worst types of people often really have good intentions. Not all of them, don't get me wrong, but that there really is a darkness inside of all of us, which is not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. That's what I'm trying to say. We can't live in love and light our entire lives, you know. And to an example off the top of my head would be somebody who's everything's gone fine for them. They've got a family, they have a new kid, they're talking about crystals and love and light, and then all of a sudden their child dies out of the blue. It's the most horrible thing a parent can face. And then all of a sudden the person loses their faith. They lose their beliefs in all these things. They say, this is bullshit. Why did I ever believe in this crap? Then they become nihilists and they lose faith in everything. And over a period of time, that person might, uh, let's just say you lose your psyche along with it. We have to face the darkness. We have to face negative events in our life, which we put that value on, and move forward with the knowledge that we can't change what happened, that we are who we are, and that we're just hairless apes running around with clothes on. You know, it's funny that we give ourselves more credit for the small time that we've been on this planet. Sometimes I step back and say, how do we function at all? We seem to agree on a few principles, and then we're able to, like, okay, hey, yeah, we start this job over here, and okay, yeah, we can build this, and then we'll hire a few people to do this. We'll pay you with these paper dollars, which are represented by this fiat currency system, which is represented by gold. Oh, wait, it used to be, but not anymore. And by the way, the government's going to tell you how to live your life, but you have a lot of freedom. And then there's this kind of like, there's a part of aware and awake and conscious humans which tells us something is fucking wrong, and that we can't just stand there and smile and take it. But this is where it's important to address the other side of this. That if all you do is focus on what's wrong and what the government's done wrong and what other people are trying to do and who's trying to kill you at all times, your life will be miserable. Because our brains adapt to what we focus on. So if we only focus on the negative, then that's what we will live in. But if we only focus on the positive, then when the negative comes around, it'll be so much harder. For example, if you've had loss in your life, if you've lost loved ones, you know how it feels. It's horrible, horrible, gut-wrenching feeling. But for those who haven't had it, the longer the delay is, and the older they get before they lose somebody they love, the harder it can really be, and it can devastate a person. It's important to be strong. I understand losing someone you love or a family member, a father, when I was 15, but you can't let it ruin your life, because you have to acknowledge that that's what life is. Shit happens. I guess at that point in my life, I was ready to embrace that darkness in my own self. I never had a bad trip on psychedelics, but when I did take them, I definitely had some moments of awareness where I saw things for what they really are. And I realized that I'll never be understood for how I truly feel in my heart. All I can do is try to tell people, hey, this is how I feel, and, I'll try to explain myself as best I can. Even through thousands of videos on YouTube, I still can't explain that darkness within myself that is not a negative trait or something that I'm trying to abandon, but rather something that I nurture and feed on the side. It's like the raven. It's the perfect example. Or the corvid, the crow. I love this. My wife got it. It's from Russia. I think it was a Christmas gift last year. But corvids, it's like a stained glass and pewter. It's broke a couple times. I keep fixing it. But the corvid, people talk about the eagle being this, I was going to say regal eagle, but that sounds pretty cheesy, doesn't it? The eagle is an amazing creature, but it's a killer, a vicious killer. It's dark creature, but it represents our country, a predator. It's pretty interesting. That's not what I was going to say. It just came to mind. But the thing to remember is that a corvid is highly intelligent. They don't need to go do their own hunting. They can just take what others leave behind. They're smart enough, and they perhaps might even be more intelligent than eagles, I'm not sure. But corvid family is very intelligent. They include scrub jays, which they look you in the eye and they know what you're thinking, man. It's creepy. Birds are smart. But my point was that, like, things like the movie, like The Crow, where we use it as a dark symbol of evil, it's only because we see them eating meat and carcasses off the street. That's pretty much the only reason we think of vultures and corvids as bad creatures or evil creatures or even related to something dark, is because they eat dead bodies that are left behind by us. When we die and we make a mess, we pollute the earth with our dead bodies. So these creatures come along and eat them, just like the worms, These are regal creatures, It's fascinating to me. So I've been on a few minutes here, 10 minutes, shit. I'm going to back up here and say hello. Hi, Logic. I saw you on there. Didn't say hi yet. Logic says, Carpo, when I did psychedelics, it told me that everything is one and everything is fine. This has led me to a major impact on me, so I may say that this is good, but if it does not fit with reality, yeah, well, psychedelics are not present. Okay, I completely agree with what you're saying. In other words, it feels like what you're saying is psychedelics tell you something that you can't reconcile with daily life. That's true. It's important, though, that you keep that in the back of your mind. The possibility that it can exist, that there can be something greater that we can't acknowledge in our day-to-day life because our brains would not be able to function for the, you know, tens of thousands of years of modern evolution to get to where we are, where we had to use a lot of our, you know, fight or flight and adrenaline, the things that keep us held back, you know, these primal feelings, our paranoia about one another. Psychedelics break down these barriers, these walls, and catching a glimpse of that just reminds you of what's important, something you can carry around with you, if that makes sense. Hello, Powder Beast. Hello, the American. He says the suppression of evil is something we all do every day. Personally, I stuff the evil thoughts and feelings at the end of my big toe and hit it with a hammer. Well, and say you're a better man than I. I refuse to harm myself, but that goes in another darkness category. I know what you're saying. He says psychedelics fix my darkness. They do. Think of it as reading a book. Psychedelics, especially psilocybin mushrooms, can at least once a year can help me to regain a sense of, you know, not who I am or what the world is, but rather that everything is just okay. That things are as they're supposed to be. But there's a difference between this and, say, you know, an opiate or, you know, shooting heroin where everything's just fine. It's not that kind of fine. It's important to declare that. It's not the kind of fine where you just think everything's all right. I mean, you could flip on a dime. It's a clear and aware thought that everything's all right. It's a complete knowledge that everything is all right. Not a feeling or an obscuring of your own emotions, but a complete revelation, what I call seeing the Godhead at certain times. I've had some amazing experiences where I'm convinced that I've touched God. If God exists, if there's such a thing, then I've been there. I've been in this presence, and there's nothing to deny about it or try to explain. I've never tried to define it or say, oh, by the way, this is the name of my God, Jesus, and if you don't believe in the name of Jesus, then, you know, you're going to burn in eternity. You've got to realize how preposterous that is. And I think we're coming around. I think that most people realize that just because a person doesn't believe what they believe doesn't mean they haven't seen things. I feel like I've had some revelations that I could never explain to people. But, you know, that's just how it is. I lost a few viewers right there, I could tell, because I was talking about Christ. I was trying to be respectful, but hey, that's life. Psychedelics are a catalyst. Yes, they are. Fixed. But no, that's the thing, though. It didn't fix my psychedelics, or it didn't fix my darkness. I learned to embrace it, and that's the difference. It's a matter of saying it's okay. It's okay to get pissed off sometimes, or to kind of self-isolate for a little bit, or to write something spiteful on Twitter because you're pissed at what somebody said. These are kind of things that we hate ourselves for sometimes, but that they're okay. It's a natural, it's something we do as humans. I mean, we can fight that. What I've found is that the people who claim to be the most in control of their darkness are the ones who are in complete denial, and the ones who are afraid to really be seen, that part of themselves. They're afraid to let loose or be who they really are. I think all of us have that animal inside of us. Don't mistake that for something evil or corrupt. It's a pure evil, if there's such a thing. Not evil, it's a pure darkness, rather. Sorry, not evil. Evil is like a word that's ascribed to too many things in humanity. I don't believe in good and evil, as others do. I don't believe in a set in stone, this is good and this is evil. But I believe in most situations we can agree that certain things in our society are disgusting or are wrong. And so there are things that are truly dark. Like people that, you know, serial killers, right? But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about that. Although those might be thoughts that run through your head. And if so, that's another thing. You know, people think about all kinds of weird shit. And like a lot of religion has taught people to feel guilty about their own thoughts. Don't masturbate. Don't think about anything evil. You know, just live your life carefully and don't think anything wrong because God's always listening to your thoughts. That's fucked up, isn't it? Well, if that is true, then God masturbates too. Then God has evil thoughts too. You know, that's the thing. It's all subjective. It really is. So Frank says, I want to have the sense of feeling to microcubans. Microcubans. Cubensis? The logic says, should we be like our realizations as an example and be damned consequences or make exceptions? Oh, well, no, of course we should not be completely like our, well, that'd have to be defined further. I mean, our realization as to who we are. Um, if your consequences that say your family is harmed or your friends, that's a different story, and so maybe that becomes a very subjective thing. Hello, Share Bear. She says, I have a clear in the word son of how we are deteriorating as a society, but I think there's more good than bad, and we're going to make a carpo bow, carpo bow especially. I don't know what that last part was there, but I'll say I think that I do have an overall positive attitude on life, and I really think that with society, because it's the only way it can be. But I'm also defining that as positive by my own viewpoint, and so that's kind of a tough one. I don't know. Hello, Crystal Dawn says psychedelics have helped me grow, but they've also caused me to grow away from the familiar, the past, attachments, codependencies. They're a good reminder that I'm sovereign and need to develop from here. Damn straight. On that note, a lot of people say psychedelics showed me that the ego needs to be dissolved and we're all one. And they say, but remember, you got to keep listening because the final part of the story comes later, where it says, yes, we're all one and we're all different, but or we're all one and we're all the same organization or the same organism and we're all organized in this way that we understand one another. But if nature wanted us to be homogenized, then we'd all be the same, but we're not. We have different opinions, different ideas for a reason. We seem to think that there could ever be a world where everyone thinks the same way. It's complete bullshit. Whether it's positive or negative or political or religious, it's like spice of life, right? That's what variety really is. I really appreciate your perspective. Well, thank you, my friend. Cher says, it's about time you went live. I haven't seen you in ages. You look good. I love the hat. Well, thank you, Cher. I actually have been live a few times in the last couple weeks, and half of them I just delete before I upload, especially if I had a few beers or something and I was just rambling and it didn't really go anywhere, because live catches me off guard. But I have done a few. They're the only ones that I... because you have the option to either upload it to YouTube or just delete it after you're done. If it's shitty, I'll delete it. I used to think, why would people delete their live cast? I think, maybe they had a couple too many beers. Who knows? Toxic positivity. Oh, thank you. Yeah, somebody just pointed that out. Yes, toxic positivity is a real thing. It really is. These are the ones who send me emails every week. This group called Transformation into the New Paradigm, and they talk about shifting your consciousness into five-dimensional reality, and all you have to do is just check out these courses. They're free, but by the way, you sign up here and you start getting charged for this or that. There are these courses that tell you how to, find your purpose in this world and, embrace your consciousness and move forward into the new dimension. Bullshit. All of that is hokey ass bullshit. There's absolutely no truth to going into some age of Aquarius where we all shift realities and become new creatures. If I'm wrong, fine, I'll embrace that and cross that when it comes. I'd be fucking stoked to move on to some other way of being for a while. Sure, be a 5D reality and wander around like a disembodied spirit and carry my crystals around. That's not to be harsh, because I have tons of crystals on my shelf and I love all these ideas about the mystical, but a lot of it's just hokey and trying to sell you books. That's how I feel about it anyway. Theodore says, the Word of God don't lie. I challenge all here to review my Deliverance Study Guide. It's on page front and back, linked in page 2 to 3 of my Destroying Babylon file. Sorry, you got to be, honestly, dude, when you're in the internet world, Theodore, you just can't, like, say, go to my channel and look at my Bible studies. People will not do it. I'm just saying that out of pure respect. It's not to be harsh. Um, Believe me, every single person who is not a Christian has heard the argument for Christianity. I mean, there's not a single person I've met who hasn't had somebody who tells them they have the truth. But if you do, I hope it's working for you, my friend. Share Bear says, pineapple juice, tell me that. I wish you a Merry Christmas. Holiday time off work, if you want to call it that. Yeah, my wife has time off now because of the fucking COVID shutting down the restaurants. We're not happy about that. I mean, working is something we want to do. So, Logic says, I ascribe the term negative or positive when speaking of behavior. Everything has a consequence, but the behaviors we ascribe to influence certain characteristics. That's true. Everything is subjective and everything is terminology, right? Hi, General. How are you? How's everybody doing? Nice Amanita cap. Hey, thanks. Yeah, that's a good story about Santa and the Amanitas and the reindeer piss and everything else, but I won't do the Christmas story. I'll save the jingle bells for the holiday. Hey, look, I got 33 people watching. Oh no, it's Illuminati, dude. It's the Freemasons. They're going to attack now. Hello, Deedster Do. How are you? Logic says, would you make the whole world a temple? Instead, be like the sun and warm the world? I don't know. I kind of like the world the way it is. Only because I don't think that I know any better. Could be better, but I think the thing might, like I was talking with somebody earlier, I said, it'd be great if there was a better distribution of wealth and understanding there weren't subsidies for farmers, when then we could just get the food to the people, where we could actually take care of one another, where it wasn't about profit and drive and motive for more and more progress. But the reality is that it is the way it is, and life is too short to sit there and fight the system all the time. You just got to live it, right? You can vote and do the best you can, but it's mostly a local thing. Like, your happiness is, of course, determined by you as an individual. There's no way around that. Somebody asks, which psychedelic in your view offers the most wisdom or spiritual growth? And that depends on the person, but psilocybin mushrooms are my opinion. What's up with the Transcontinental Railroad, Carpo? Frank asks. I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about the Chinese one, they're moving ahead. They're moving ahead in the world while we fail. Jen says, it's funny so many people frightened to look into themselves. It's a deep dive and rewarding. You're right, sister. It really is very rewarding to find yourself and to understand yourself. Yeah, it's not for everyone. I've seen people go completely haywire and break down on psychedelics, but in the long run, all of those people have done pretty damn well mentally for themselves. I don't know anybody who's really lost their mind, but people who have temporarily kind of had, breakdowns, which, shit, I've had them too. I mean, I've never gone psychotic or had a full-blown schizophrenic episode. I don't have that predisposition to mental illness, at least not that I know. But I've definitely had moments of depression and anxiety, which are basically self-inflicted by my thoughts about the world, my perspectives on what I think other people believe, which isn't always true. And what I've learned, and the most important thing, is that it fucking doesn't matter. Fuck those people. Fuck anybody out there who's got an issue with me. Why is it my problem what other people think? And then you step back and you say, well, it is because you want to be respected in other people's eyes. But then you say, well, whose eyes do I care about being respected in? And that's different for each individual. For some people, it's cranking a rice burner down the road and pumping bass in this little tiny fucking Honda with a really loud muffler. That looks stupid as shit to me. They look like a dumbass. But to some other dude who likes those things, like, oh man, that guy's cool as shit. Or, guys who go out and race supercars and crash them and shit. One of my favorite things to watch is the instant karma fails, where people see a crowd of people and they peel out in their fucking $100,000 sports car and just wreck it completely into a wall or a curb. I laugh inside and I'm like, why do I feel that way? Oh, because the car is too expensive, because he's showing it off and now he looks like a complete dumbass. And because a lot of these people have been born into money, they've never, I feel like if you buy a $400,000 car, you're just an idiot. I can't help it. That's just how I feel. I don't care. There's no excuse for it. There's a world where people need help and we can do better. It's just perpetuating this ignorance and this stereotype. You know, people are really selfish as hell. People who buy like $1 million mansions and say, "Oh well, I, I, I just don't get it. It's not my thing. Not my place to say, right? Does not matter, right? Yeah. Oh, and Frank says, I don't know, but the Asians helped a lot on the railroad in North America. Probably. The thing is, we're going through a lot of changes in the world right now. So there's a lot of darkness. But we're always going through changes. There's always darkness. There's always positivity as well. You have to find what works for you, right? And when I say these things, I'm not saying it condescendingly, like, you have to be empowered. Oh, gig economy, get out there and be active. I really hate motivational speakers unless they do it right in the way that's reasonable. That's like, I shouldn't say motivational speakers. I should say the ones that believe in hustle culture. I think hustle culture is one of the most damaging things we've done to the youth in recent years. Hustle culture is convincing people that if they want to be successful in life, they have to go out and do as many different jobs as they can, work their asses off, work crazy hours, and people end up bragging about working 80-hour work weeks, 100-hour work weeks. I think that's fine if you're a single guy, but if you got a family and that's all you're doing, what is the gain? What are you trying to get? Okay, a bigger house. Fine, we move into a bigger house. We get a nicer car. How is that making you happier? And I think Americans have realized that it doesn't. That's why suicide rates, depression, and anxiety are higher in first world countries than anywhere in the world. We're really miserable. A lot of it's having to live up to other people's bullshit. It's really, really true. Jen says, if I took money seriously in one of those McMansions, I chose human experience with scars to prove it, and I don't regret a thing. Yeah, that's the thing. We all could have got rich, right? I mean, if you really work towards it. I think a lot of people don't want the burden and realize that having a lot of money is a burden. And having a giant mansion just means you have to pay people to clean it, really. I can barely use all the space that I have. I've only got a small house, but I just mean I don't need to do anything except live and sleep and eat. But I don't need my own tennis court or my own bowling alley. That would be kind of fun, though. I mean, I can't deny. Of course, if I was a billionaire, I'd probably have a totally different viewpoint. The American says, "Man, what do you mean I'm selfish? I drive a car that's worth 369." Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It really is. Mm-hmm. I do not have a mansion. Yeah, I've lived we've lived in a motel as a family before for a brief time, and stayed with a sister-in-law, and lost a farmhouse we had that because they sold it to the Lazy Boy Furniture Company without any notice, 30-day notice out, with the whole farm planted and everything. We had a huge garden out back. Some good times, and then it went to shit, and we all faced that crap. But in the long run, it forced us to buy a house up here, and now we're looking to buy like a cabin. It's like I just want to get away from it all. I want to get away from society, but I know there's really no escape. Part of the darkness is facing what society is. And I've seen in the last couple of years that people are really trying to oversimplify a country by like, oh, these are the Democrat cities that do this, and these are the Republican states and the red states and blue states. I'm like, it's just facepalm in today's world that people really think it's that simple. Because of course, when you break it down, differences in opinion are fairly equal in almost every state. I mean, sure, there's landslide election differences, but the point being that it's more like splotchy, just like people who are poor, just like homelessness, the things that we don't see, the way that it's hidden within the fabric of society. In other words, what we have in America is very dark right now, but we're trying to put a light spin on it, talking about the stock market. I mean, how many of you have stocks? I'm curious. I've never owned a stock in my life. If I did, I guess I'd have to be rich so I'd be able to do something with it. But the idea that these are the kind of things we just, that people talk about, it's just, people are so easily programmed. I mentioned something in a comment the other day about sheep, and I said that there's safety in numbers, and I meant that. But I didn't mean that you have to be, you can't be an individual. And somebody said, yeah, but the sheep all fall off a cliff. I was like, no, those are lemmings. And we got to talking, and he says, it's better to think for yourself, in a nutshell. And I said, I agree. But there's a reason why some things are called mainstream. It's because they're not just safe, but they're true, or they're real. Like, when billions of people believe something and 5 people believe it something different, it's always the 5 people who seem to think they're in the know, right? It's just like the ones who were arguing the earth is flat. I have no reason to prove them wrong. Couldn't care less. At this point, you can believe whatever you want. I'm not surprised by anything anymore. When people say that they're surprised people believe the earth is flat, I say, why? People still believe in very, very dogmatic religious beliefs as well. There's Mormons, there's Scientologists. It's whatever works for an individual, whatever gives you a sense of community in a group, because without a group, without some family, it can be really dark out there at times. I'll read the comments real quick here. Who is this, Cheech Marin? Cheech. Dave's not here. Dave's not here. Pensions. Yeah, that's one of the factors. It's yeah, I don't want to get too much into that, but I have stocks. I'll give you one. That's funny. I owned some my dad gave me, and they went to the tattoo, but I did buy a home during that, even if it's not a mansion. Hey, man, I'm glad I could buy a home. Of course, we owe more than we probably did at the beginning, but at least we, quote, are buying a home, right? Sis says, God is real. The truth will set you free. Well, that's kind of a very vague comment, no offense, but when you say God, I don't know. It depends on what God you're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of different beliefs and a lot of different gods out there, and I think a lot of different interpretations. If you believe in a God that is everything and everyone and connects us all, I'm all for it. If you believe in a God that's vengeful and sends you to hell, I call complete bullshit on it every time. There is no hell. There will never be a hell. Theodore says, flat earth makes way more sense than the globe. Well, that's only if you don't understand basic science. The American says, my stocks have done well. I started buying 4 years ago. See, that's the thing. I know some people do buy stocks, and it helps them. But the thing is, I guess my only point is this. People do have stocks. If you can afford to buy stocks, you should be able to afford to lose those stocks. It's kind of like gambling. When you go in and you gamble, they say, well, no, you can lose that money. So as long as that's the case, that's fine. But when stocks are put over people's lives, like, that's what's being, talked about by, I don't want to get into politics, but I could give two shits about stocks during a pandemic. That's what I'm saying. I don't buy into it. It sucks, but I don't know. I just feel like people need to be much more dependent on themselves instead of relying on a market. But I understand that market, I'm not foolish. I know that the market is also part of, what makes our society function at the moment. But really, when we all get down to it, like I was talking with my buddy, I was like, all we really need is food, water, and shelter. We can't even get clean water in some cities, okay? Whether it be from fracking or lead in the pipes or any other reason. There are some people who cannot get clean water. That should be a fucking priority from our government. The federal government should have fixed infrastructure years ago. This shit needs to be taken care of, but it's not being taken care of. People who are poor and can't afford food. The food's there. The subsidies are paid by the government to the farmers to burn their own crops, to destroy it. I'm sure lots of you saw the tanker trucks full of milk just dumping it because they had nowhere to put it. Logistics issues, they, give it to the people. There's so much waste out there, but it's all done in the name of profit. So I really don't support the current system, and I'm being brutally honest. Like, I know that we're doing our best as a society, but if the whole market fell apart and the whole stock market crashed, I would be pleased. I know that it would lead to chaos, but out of that chaos, the phoenix would rise from the ashes, and we'd have something much better. I firmly believe that. We cannot continue this way. We really can't. It's just ridiculous the kind of society we're living in. But that's just my opinion on it anyway. Deedster says all planets are round except Earth. I don't get the flat Earth theory, and that's good. I totally agree with you, my friend. Hello, Romario. How are you? Hey, Inspector Pooper. What's up, my friend? Hey, Carpo. I broke down in Utah. Yeah, you see, you were telling me that. I hope your truck gets repaired well and that you don't get attacked by Mormons. Logistics issues. Yep, pretty much. Jen says they've been experimenting on us, water fluorides, etc., and also mind control propaganda since the 40s. You know, a lot of that comes across as conspiracy, but it's true. They've used MK Ultra. They've tested on American people, American populations. The only part of that that I would say I'm a little reluctant. The only thing about the fluoride is that fluoride is not the same fluoride that's used to control people's minds like people would think. A certain type of fluoride is what's used in, say, Paxil or Prozac, I think. But this is a different type of fluoride. It's actually a byproduct of mining. It's considered highly toxic, and they convinced the cities to let them dump it instead of having to deal with disposing of it decades ago. And that's why fluoride's in the water. It doesn't really do shit for your teeth, and it's pretty sad. All right. The pizzeria says those are words of Antifa. What words? I don't even know what you're talking about. Andrew says, crappy education don't teach how to grow crops, basic life skills crafts. Absolutely true, but that's education was never meant to teach you how to grow crops. A lot of parents dump their kids on the education system and think the kids are just going to learn everything they need to, and it just doesn't work that way. As a parent, you have to supplement. It's your job to teach your kids values. It's crazy that people actually think the school does that and that should do that, even though they do teach kids to try to get along and treat each other with respect. There's something to be said about them being with another group of kids while they're learning it. It sinks in better than parents, which a lot of kids just don't listen to. The fact is that kids do listen to teachers more than their own parents sometimes because it's somebody different, somebody who's in authority to them. Um, it's an interesting thing, you know. I emailed your free stock. Yeah, when I heard the word stock, I was thinking of horse stock, and then I started thinking of stockings and Christmas and weird year. Hmm. Frank said the elders are important. It's a very good point. But when the elders get too old in our society, they become politicians that are crusty and old and don't know what the people need. But at the same time, they still have some things to share, some words of wisdom. You become a little more conservative by nature as you get older for a lot of people, but not all. Conservative minded doesn't mean that you're conservative by political view. But then we have people like Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is probably one of the most hated intellectuals, but also one of the most revered and loved. He's highly intelligent. People always make fun of the way he talks or his demeanor or his nihilism, but honestly, there's not much he says that you can dispute. He's been talking since the 60s about the American war machine, and if anything, I tend to be kind of a very left-leaning, like anti-authoritarian kind of person. Absolutely. I don't believe what I've been taught. I don't believe what I've been told. But I do believe the quality of my own research and my ability to distinguish and decipher truth from fiction. And if I'm wrong at times, I'm willing to admit that. But, like going back to, say, the shape of the Earth, of course, no evidence has come forward to show me that the Earth is flat. In fact, even the experiments I've seen people do have proven themselves wrong, and they become completely in denial about that result. Finding an excuse for it, it's human nature. It's fascinating. It really is. Jordan Peterson, somebody says, Chris, well, first I should answer Chris. He says, do you think the hippie movement, LSD, was part of a psyop? No, I don't. Not originally, but it was used as that. The government used LSD for psychological operations. It's well known that it was used as an attempt to mind control and as part of MK Ultra. But LSD was originally created by Sandoz Laboratories in I think the 30s or 40s. But, well, no, it was Albert Hofmann in 47? No, 39? See, I get them mixed up. I'm thinking about when cannabis became illegal. I think it was 47. But anyway, Albert Hoffman, maybe 39. In 1939, his famous bicycle ride, when he got some spilled on his skin, he was told to go back to that chemical, and he was looking for something that would help his wife. Long story short, it became popular. The U.S. government wanted to try it out. They imported it. It became a thing, and people loved it. Then they made it illegal. Yes, the government used it as a psyop, but the drug itself, not all of the LSD spread around was that way. They tried to keep it under control because it kind of worked against what they thought. They thought that it would make soldiers fall in line, perhaps, and be more easy to manipulate. In fact, it just made them laugh and have a good time and realize, why the fuck did I join this military? Why am I fighting this war? There's nothing to win here. Why am I fighting in Vietnam? This is dumb, you know? But, it's a story all itself. To move down, as for the Jordan Peterson, I wasn't sure what you were asking about him, so I can't really say much about him. I think that Jordan Peterson had his moment. Goats who stare at men. Hey KC, LSD on Charles Manson. Yeah, Charles Manson, the LSD story was something completely different. Like any tool, can be used for propaganda, can be used for good. It rewires the brain in many different ways. So you got to be careful with what tools you're using. Indeed. The American, more so, COVID social distancing drove half the people off the edge of the flat earth. Yeah, it's possible. Uh, Sandia and Hoffman. Yeah, Sandoz Laboratories. Yeah, it's made from ergot. It's derived from an ergot fungus, which is also known as ergotamine or ergotamine. It's very difficult to obtain, and these days, it grows on wheat. You can get the ergotamine. You need the lysergic acid, but people who make it these days, have to make it differently because the precursors were banned, so people couldn't make LSD. But the root of it is still a fungus. This is the thing to realize when people talk about mushrooms and LSD. Like, which one do you like better? I like mushrooms, obviously, but LSD is derived from ergot. It's a fungus. So these psychedelics are generally fungus derived, all of them, even LSD. But it grows on wheat. So if you haven't heard the stories about the tainted wheat in the past that got people tripping in whole cities high, you should definitely look into that because I don't want to tell the whole story here. But basically, tainted wheat made a lot of people trip, and there's some beliefs that a lot of the witch trials might have been due to people having hallucinations, thinking they were seeing things that weren't really there. Yeah, LSD, nice try, military. Yeah, exactly. You try to fucking make it work, and it ends up working against you, right? KC says, I like Jordan Peterson. I think he has a good dude. Something's with his religion I don't care for much, but other than that, he's a decent guy. He's decent. He's just not responsible for the things that he says and doesn't realize the implications of the weight that his words hold. But I really can't stand his religious banter. And the fact that he talked about being a man and owning it, and then you find out he's been addicted to Klonopin for a couple of years, and he goes through treatment, and he's been fucked up for months. It just means he's another human, which is what I expected, what I've been telling people, but it shows that he doesn't live by his own standards, and that's okay. Hey, I don't either. I'd love to live, be able to say, I'm this great dude who knows what to teach you, and I'll teach young men how to live their lives and how to clean up their own room and clean up their act. Jordan Peterson's a hack in the end, and so it's okay. We're all hacks. As long as he can admit it. And that's all that really matters. We find people that we like to listen to, and whatever works. Owsley. Nah, I have a book in there about Owsley. Salem Witch Trials. Yep. Yep. It's true. Grim Reefer. Hey, my friend, how are you doing? Says I'm 24 minutes behind. But I think it's important to acknowledge your darkness and the animal side. We should know what can happen to the preacher's child who's, utterly suppressed their whole life, or like the nuns or the priests who molest little boys. I mean, this is so common. It's just a half joke. People don't even want to talk about it. The church doesn't want to admit it, but there are a lot of pervy priests out there. I think that one of the scariest places I can imagine leaving my kid would be at a church retreat with a bunch of priests. Now think about that for a minute. You know? I mean, that is pretty fucked up. These are the people who are supposed to take care of their flock, and you find out they're some of the most corrupted ones. God is failing them. I'll just put it that way. Or at least acknowledge reality. Yeah, exactly. I was behind the stream. There was sick priests and clowns and child. Yeah, there's a lot of fucked up things out there. I don't, the whole. This is why people are so upset and disgusted by the kind of shit that goes on like this. That instead of say blaming the church, this is interesting. A lot of people have projected their religious anger at a lot of these perversions onto say the satanic Hollywood elite. There's perverts everywhere in Hollywood and in government, but the idea of QAnon, that whole conspiracy, it's all bullshit. It's the biggest troll and bait campaign that has ever been proposed. I've never seen a larger troll operation that has worked for longer than QAnon. And yet people actually make shirts, they carry signs, they think that Trump's going to save them from all these child predators, even though Trump is a fucking predator. Talks about touching little girls in the dressing room. I mean, the guy's disgusting. Like, a lot of these old dudes are disgusting. And I know a lot of women out there think all old guys are like that or all guys are perverts. It's not true. I have never talked out of line or touched a woman who, you know, I didn't confirm first to. I mean, I've always been careful about that. There are some guys out there who actually give a shit. But the fact that we elected a pervert and a predator and then we actually allow them to be in our colleges, in our schools, in our goddamn, churches, like, and not just allow it, but actually support it. The popes and these other priests who keep it quiet, who pay families off. If you are a bishop, you should be firing that son of a bitch. You should be banishing him, and publicly apologizing, but instead they hide it and try to pay the family off. Churches are disgusting. They're really disgusting. It's all about money out there, folks. We all know this is true. Yeah, QAnon's a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of idiots. I agree, Jen. I can't stand it. I have people who I know who have fallen for all the latest conspiracy shit in the last year about Q and about how do you know it's not true? And how do you know it's not true? It's like, dude, look, nobody's out there trying to help you by stopping perverts when they're the very ones that are supporting the perverts in office. I don't even know what to say about that. Inspector Pooper. Name a weed strain QAnon. There you go. Do it. You should. But first you got to grow the weed strain. I have one I just grew this year that's my own strain, so I could call it Q. But I didn't. I named it 2020 COVID lockdown fucked up something. I wrote it somewhere, but it was like the whole year. But even my buddy and I were talking earlier about how he's like, how's your year been, really? And I was like, actually, it's been pretty good. Even when my wife had time off, we'd already planned on taking a month off to go camping. She's now we're off again, but it's the holidays. At least we can be together. Which is why I intended to only make a 1 hour video here. It's getting already pretty long, and I'm going to head into the house now and play some games. I probably should be in there. I just felt like talking, and I didn't want to talk to myself, and I didn't want to go ramble to my family, so I decided to talk to y'all. And appreciate you coming along and listening. I'm not leaving yet, but, I just wanted to answer any final questions if anybody has any, and I think I've kind of talked out my darkness for what it's worth. I don't have a lot of darkness, I'll be honest. I usually feel pretty positive, but, it's it's hard to always be happy. It's impossible. So, KC says, I'd just love to grow some weed for fun and give it to people. I don't like smoking much anymore. Yeah, I feel the same way. Actually, I'd give more weed away. I give some to everybody who comes over, but I don't know. Yeah, it's more enjoyable to share than it is to hoard, that's for sure. No conspiracy true. Rather smoke weed than listen to Q. Yeah, pretty much. That's the thing. Let me just leave on this note. Not just QAnon conspiracies, but no prophecies come true. I've researched prophecies in the past, all the different things people claim have happened. I read all the Nostradamus stuff. I wanted to know, can we predict anything? And if so, what does that say about time? And I found that pretty much everybody's full of shit. Your preachers and your local pastors, they're completely full of shit. A lot of the higher education teachers and the philosophers, they're totally full of shit. People who tell you that the intellectual groups that talk among themselves with overly complicated language, they're totally full of shit. Everybody is full of shit, and if you can't admit that to yourself, then you're totally full of shit for not admitting it to yourself. And I stand by that firmly. It's like when you break it really down, we're all just idiots. We don't know shit. We think we know more than we do. There's nobody I've ever met that has shit figured out. If anybody does, I do, because I'm the greatest. No, that's the whole thing. Everybody thinks they know what's best, and that's what makes us all total idiots. Ultimately, we only know what's best for us, and half the time that's not even true. You know what I mean? Jen says, summertime on its way. Oh, God, thank you. Oh, God, it's going to be a while. Frank says, how's the hippie bus doing? Any new upgrades? No, it's wintertime. I haven't even been out to the bus much. It's kind of depressing. I want to take it up winter camping, but I haven't really been out there much. Choice is apparently an option. We've done this before. It's possible. Patience. Yeah, I know what you mean. Patience, the bus. Yeah. Having a school bus is pretty cool. I definitely like to improve it a little bit more and add the little rack in the back, and I need to put the generator I got down underneath. But I need to have my friend come over and help me weld, because I don't know how to weld. I was just saying how I want to learn how to forge my own knives, because it's the only thing I haven't worked with. I've worked with wood for years. I can make, dovetailed fancy boxes. And I've worked with stone. I can cut cabochons and grind them down into nice jewelry. But I'd still like to work with really fine crystals. I wanted to do like diamond cutting and stuff, but then I realized it's just basically just a bar on a grinder. Cutting facets, that kind of thing for like jewels, it's not my thing. It's too technical. I like the hands-on approach. I like the feel of holding a piece of wood or a piece of, stone, but I've never done anything with metal. So I wanted to forge like a Damascus steel blade, like freaking fold it over and make my own sword, or make a katana sword or something, but that would take a long time, and I'd have to get myself a forge set up in the backyard and everything. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know. But anyway, Jen says, why don't you have Etsy? I do have an Etsy account. Let me just say, it gets really complicated and expensive when they have all the requirements of what you're supposed to put, how many pictures you post, how much money they take from it, just like PayPal takes their cut from it. Everybody wants your money. So I put all my jewelry on my website, Carpos Botanicals, but they're just there, and I don't have them individually listed yet, because I was going to eventually take pictures and have each one listed with a number so people can order them that way and then pay through PayPal separately. If anybody really, really wants one, I've had a couple people like, when are you going to post those things? And, I wanted to launch the jewelry business. Like, actually, I have one on here, I think, that I made a while back. It's one of my favorite ones, because I make these resin pieces, and it's got a piece of wood that I cut out of a tree in the woods up there. It's like a hemlock piece. It's a piece of burl, a slice, and then it's put in resin, which is glow-in-the-dark resin. So if you like, heat it up, put the light on there, it'll glow in the dark, and they look really cool at night. And so I've got a couple dozen of these different kinds, and then I've got probably like 30 or 40 different bracelets, cuff bracelets and bangles and whatnot. The problem was that my grinding wheel had issues, and I had to finish buffing them and polishing them, and I'm a perfectionist, so I get to the point where I need to finish them all, and I just didn't. This year that's changing. I'm cleaning out my shop out here. I've got all my woodworking equipment out, my router table, table saw, chop saw, all that stuff, and I'm going to start making a lot more things. So, I don't know why I had that on. Totally forgot. Anyway, thanks for coming along. I'll talk to y'all next time, and I'll flip through the comments before I go through. Knowing what happens before or at birth or after death, we're all on this floating rock together. Thank you, Ian. That's exactly how I feel. But it is fun. Jen, yes, it is fun. Theodore, hello, Theodore. He says, my Latter Rain Judgment on Earth playlist, be sure to check it out. What? So what, you're here like to promote your Flat Earth playlist on my live video? Go for it, bro. You guys go visit, see what he has to say, because I can't do Flat Earth shit anymore. I can't. Um, Shroom kits are sold on Etsy. Bummer. Sold out on Etsy, he says. Oh, that's a bummer. I'd love to uh, get some spores. That's all I need. I just don't want to order them. Oru says, when's the last time you tripped? The last time I tripped was, I took some Molly a couple weeks ago. Well, it was a few weeks ago. I made a video afterward talking about it a little bit, but I haven't tripped in probably a year and a half. It's been a long time. I thought when this whole lockdown happened, it'd be the perfect time to take psychedelics and like really go in my head. Haven't needed to. Haven't felt the need. I've got mushroom honey. I could take it anytime if I wanted. Anything I want, really. It's always available somewhere. Just call a friend, you know, but I'm just not that interested. I don't know. Every time I plan on taking mushrooms, I just say I don't really need it. That's all. Real folk blues. Grow your own, folks. I give it away jars at Christmas, and people never forget those gifts. Well, you're nicer than I am. I can't give away whole jars, but yeah. I bought these a couple of years back. These were like a limited edition purple jar. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's a limited edition purple jar that they sold like 5 years ago at Fred Meyer. Haven't seen them since, but yeah. I packed those jars full. And then I've got like this old pickle jar, which is just packed full. And instead of giving away weed to people, I'll always give away bags, but I like to give away treats. I have an amazing recipe, and I posted a video about how to make these weed caramels. I'm telling you, they are the best. You've got to decarb your weed and everything ahead of time. You got to know what you're doing a little bit, but if you want the recipe, it's up on YouTube somewhere. Cannabis caramels are always a favorite for people. They're so goddamn strong. I mean, right now I take capsules. I made my own capsules. I actually just found a bag of them earlier. I don't know where it went, but I make my own extract, and then I put it half and half with coconut oil, then put it in the capsules while it's still just slightly liquid. It stays liquid in the capsules, but I ended up with these strong capsules that people are afraid to take even one of. So I find myself being a little more cautious and careful with how strong I make my weed candy. Found you at the end. Hi, Jairus. How you doing, my friend? You want a creation from Josh, huh, Jen? Right on, brother. The American. Check your email. Your stock awaits. I don't even know what you mean, brother, but I will definitely be checking my email. I always do. If you really sent me a stock, then I don't know how that would even be possible or how that works. Phil says, how long's it been running? I just got off from work and listening for the shower. Oh, about an hour. I'm getting ready to go, though, and I appreciate all of you. I really do. I'd like to go longer, but maybe I can come back. Let me put it this way. I want to go play games with the family and watch a movie and stuff. If the whole family passes out, I might be back later this evening. Because, like I said, I took a nap, put me in this kind of like weird mood. Wanted to talk about dreams and life and darkness. And so, Deedster says, do you have a video about the immunity capsules on your site? I'm interested in them. I don't have any videos about the capsules. But I could make one, I guess, talking about what's on them. I have a whole sheet that I made I need to print out for people, but they're different mushrooms. It blends in there. There's the reishi, chaga. I have some ashwagandha extract, and basically I was looking for any herb that I thought would help the immune system fight against a virus or an infection. And it was originally made years ago for the old swine flu year. So I just thought I'd bring it back around for this year. Andrew says, I hope weed gets legal in England someday. Y'all got to fight for it. It ain't going to just happen. And I know you have been. I'm just saying that's when people say, why don't the federal government legalize weed here? It's because the local states have to do it themselves. So I use ABV in my baking. Already been vaped. Yeah, a lot of people do that. There's other components within the weed that can help. Hey, I like it when you call me brother. It's a thing lately. Who called you brother? Jen? I call you brother? Did I? No. But you could be a brother or a sister. If you want to be a brother, can you accept online payments? No, not at the moment because Kratom vendors, well, I can for the capsules, but not for Kratom. And it's been a major issue where people will send me a payment for Kratom through my PayPal site and say, oh, for Kratom, for order this order. Then PayPal cancels my account, which is what happened. So now I very carefully use my wife's account for only jewelry, but I can use it for my herbs if I'm not kratom, but for the capsule blends. But I prefer not to do it unless I'm doing it just for jewelry right now. Phil says, Carpo, you help me keep my sanity. Well, who's helping me keep mine? Chaga Reishi Turkey Tail. Oh, no, yeah, those are all good ones too. I use Chaga Reishi and Lion's Mane myself, and Cordyceps. Hmm. Right on, my friends. It's been 1 hour. I'm heading out. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. And for what it's worth, I really appreciate all you for coming and for listening. And I might be back later this evening. We'll see. Peace out.